Returning now to local politics, joining me is the Shadow Climate Minister Mark Butler. Thanks so much for your time. Your focus has been Angus Taylor last week and this week. Will Labor drop it if the New South Wales Police investigation clear him and his office of any wrongdoing?
Well, the New South Wales Police are obviously investigating whether or not a criminal offence has been committed under the New South Wales Crimes Act, the making of this document, the use of this document, the failure to report its existence once people became aware of that. So that's one issue that will obviously leave the good people of the New South Wales Police to work on. There's another question, though, before the Parliament, and that is Angus Taylor's repeated misleading of the Parliament about where he got the document from. It's very clear he did not get these dodgy figures from the Sydney City Council website. We've seen the metadata from the council that confirms that. We've got the public internet archives that all confirm that over the course of the whole of 2019, only the correct figures were up online. So there is still a very serious question around the consequences of Angus Taylor having repeatedly misled the Parliament.
But aren't you preempting the police investigation by saying that he's committed fraud, that he's doctored the documents without awaiting?
I'm not saying.
Well, the Shadow Attorney General was saying.
I'm saying it's clear on all of the evidence that someone has made this document up. Whether you look at the public internet archives or the council metadata, it's crystal clear that these dodgy figures did not come from the City of Sydney annual report. Someone has made this document up. Now, there's no evidence to suggest that that was Angus Taylor.
But someone in his office.
But what Angus Taylor has said is that he directly downloaded those figures from the council website, and that is a mislead of Parliament. That's what we'll be focused on. The other matters, well, that's for the New South Wales.
But isn't there a chance there's some innocent mistake here, that once the police look through this, they come up with? I mean, we haven't seen what their outcome of the investigation is. That there is some innocent stuff up, because that happens.
Okay, the police, there's a possibility the police could find that he did download these dodgy figures from the City of Sydney website, but that would be contrary to all of the evidence we have, the council metadata, and as I said, the public internet archives, including the one maintained by the National Library, the Trove website database, that says completely the opposite. Now, if that happens, well, Angus Taylor may have told Parliament the truth, but there's no evidence. All of the evidence so far indicates that those dodgy figures did not come from the City of Sydney Council website. And there's obviously also this latest question we raised yesterday about his repeated failure to disclose interests that he holds through his partnerships or through his companies in accordance with the House of Representatives practice.
But often we see that ministers will disclose something late, an oversight here or there. Are you alleging a conflict of interest in this particular matter?
No, we're alleging a failure to comply with the rules, and he's a repeat offender here. He's failed to disclose his interest in Jamland, which is the company that owned or has ownership of property that is subject of the compliance action around the alleged illegal poisoning of endangered grasslands, so-called Grassgate. And now he's also failed to disclose his partnership's interest in this new company, GFA F1, which they've held for more than 5 years. And his statements over the last 24 hours indicate he has no intention of correcting the record. Bizarrely, he says that he's only obligated to disclose controlling interests in companies. Now, a controlling interest effectively means that you control the company. So the corollary of what he says is that a resource minister would only be obliged to disclose the fact they have BHP shares if they have a sufficient number of those shares to control the company. That is utterly ridiculous.
Will you be pursuing in Parliament today this other report which emerged overnight in relation to Mr Taylor's time at Oxford University, vis-a-vis his maiden speech, or is this again just an innocent, recollection of one's university days? Because all of us struggle to remember those.
She was either on the eastern side of the Atlantic or on the western side of the Atlantic. She says she was on the western side of the Atlantic, nowhere near Oxford. She was at Oxford years before Angus Taylor. In 1991, when Angus Taylor says she was just up the corridor, she was on a book tour of one of the most successful books published that year. So again, Angus Taylor has misled the Parliament in his first speech. It's not about his ministerial duties, but it just gives you a sense that maybe this guy likes to make stuff up to concoct a myth around him as the great fighter against these culture wars that he says he was fighting in the Oxford University.
And is there some great, breach of Parliament to have a fib in your maiden speech, or is that just someone who can't recollect their uni days?
Well, I think it reflects pretty poorly on him, that's all. And I think, again, he's failed to correct the record. This is a guy who, when he's caught out, just won't admit he's done something wrong and correct the record. Over the course of the last 24 hours, again, contrary to all of the evidence, he said that he never said Naomi Wolf was part of this so-called anti-Christmas campaign.
You have been obviously trying to spread the political damage here to the Prime Minister, the Attorney General and so on, but isn't the Prime Minister showing loyalty here to one of his front bench? Isn't loyalty something that in this place is a rare commodity? He'll be supported internally for doing that.
Well, loyalty is obviously a good thing, but when you're the Prime Minister, your obligation is to enforce the rules. And we've seen time and time again Prime Ministers take action against ministerial colleagues, even when it is deeply uncomfortable for them to do so. Bob Hawke did it in relation to one of his closest friends and colleagues, Mick Young, for a much, much smaller misdemeanor than the list of misdemeanors that Angus Taylor's involved in. John Howard did it with 7 ministers in his first term as Prime Minister. That's what being a leader is all about, not digging in and pretending that these enormous breaches of the rules don't matter.
But can't you also say that he should await due process? We're only days away, potentially, from a New South Wales investigation being wrapped up.
Well, 2 things we've said. One is it's quite clear that Angus Taylor has misled the Parliament on all of the evidence, and he's presented no evidence to support his contention that he downloaded these dodgy figures from the City of Sydney website. So there's a mislead there. That's a sacking offence. So there's nothing more fundamental than the obligation of ministers to tell the truth to the Parliament. That's the bedrock of the Westminster system. As for this police investigation, there is precedent under Prime Ministers Abbott and Turnbull. While an investigation is underway, a minister should be stood aside.
Mr Butler, appreciate your time as always. Thanks.
Thanks, Kieran.